So there are many Detroit Lions halfbacks on their roster. I think a decent amount of very good ones and a couple interesting ones too, even if they aren't necessarily household names. I think probably the biggest name, the most proven guy in the NFL has to be Kerryon Johnson. I think he's had some really good plays, and so I'll show one play of what I really like about Kerryon. So this is the running scheme. This is the run blocking. This is how they will be run blocking. Jesus Christ, that was terribly said by me. Moving on. So, it's going to be a run to that side of the screen. It's going to be a run to the left side of the screen. I probably could have just said that and not had to write this down, but, that's the point. Really what I want you to take a look at is right when this ball is snapped. You notice that, 91 there for Kansas City, doing a good job of trying to get to the inside a little bit. He's kind of clogging up the running lane. Ideally, I think Kerryon would like to try and run in between 91 and 53, but there isn't a big gap, and he's going to kind of have to zigzag a little bit to try and get through there if that's what he wants to do. But of course, on the flip side, he can't really get to the outside. There's a Kansas City player who's doing a good job of setting the edge, and up the middle, again, 91, doing a good job of staying to that side. So you basically, Kerryon doesn't really have a choice. I mean, he could also choose the gap that's in between 50 and 53, but he feels a little bit more confident in between 53 and 91. So that's what he's going to do. He's going to just see if he can pick up a yard or two, basically. But what I like about him is that he's such a quick accelerator, and he's just so strong. I feel like he's a very strong guy, that he just sort of puts his head down and squeezes through that gap, and he's very difficult to bring down. He turns what could have been just a 1 or 2 yard gain into a 9-yard gain, and that's kind of what he's bringing to the table. He's just the kind of guy where he'll put his head down, he gets through gaps very quickly, and he's going to get you a good amount of 5+ yard runs. From one guy named Johnson to another guy with the last name of Johnson, we'll talk about Ty Johnson. I think Ty Johnson's very interesting. He averaged a respectable 4.3 yards per attempt last year on just 63 rushes, but still pretty solid. He also had over 100 receiving yards, and I actually think that his what he can do in the receiving game is a bit more interesting to me than what he can even do in the rushing game, and I could see him being a kind of guy who he comes out there on obvious passing downs, so much so that on his Pro Football Reference page, they have him listed as a wide receiver instead of as a running back, which kind of just, he can definitely be a receiver at times, and he can receive out of the backfield as well, as this will be an example of that. It's going to be just a quick pass to him. It's a screenplay, so they're going to have, it's actually going to be a center who's going to run out and try to lead block for Johnson. You also have your tackle and left guard. They're kind of going to just try to create a gap that makes it easier for Johnson to run through there, because again, that's kind of the idea of a screen pass, is it can be a good way to just get you to that second level already, and you don't even have to worry about the beginning part of the play of trying to get through the offensive and defensive line. And this play's working out okay. Johnson gets the ball, but the problem is that you're going to see a Chicago player does a very good job of reading this play, running in, and getting in position to make this tackle. So for a lot of guys at this point, they probably would only be able to gain, maybe 1 or 2 yards, because it's just going to be difficult to get too much more yards after the linebacker. But for Johnson, he's able to outrun him pretty well, and he's even able to get the first down on that play. It seemed like it might not have been the best play at a certain point. So again, good speed there. He's a good receiving back, can also run in between the tackles as well. And he's kind of, he might just be more of a depth guy, but I do think that he adds some good value, I think. Maybe my favorite guy to talk about, favorite guy I got to bring up, is going to be Beau Scarbrough, because I think that he's a very unique player. Not a lot of people run like him. For one thing, he's just a huge running back, 6'1", 236 pounds. For a running back, that is definitely very large measurables. But despite his size, he can move, like on this play. So you're going to have a fullback block the Washington edge player, and then, double team up middle. He's going to try and run in that direction. But what's interesting here is that you notice that the Washington player who was lined up on the side does a great job of crashing in immediately. There's also another Redskin player who does a very good job of rushing in. So this is bad news for Scarborough, and this is the kind of thing that can result in losses of 2 or 3 yards. A lot of guys will be tempted to run to the right side of the screen, which would, not be great because there's still 3 other Washington players in that area. So you're basically running into 4 players, but you can at least gain, only lose 1 or 2 yards if you do that. Whereas obviously if you just run forward, you're losing like 4 yards. What Scarbrough is going to do instead is he's going to try a jump cut and get to the left side of the screen. If he can pull this off, he has some room to run. But the problem is that it's going to be very difficult and he's going to have to do it very quickly. But that's what he's going to do. He does get the jump cut over there, and then he has pretty good breakout speed, and he runs forward and is able to pick up a good amount of yards. I like Scarbrough a lot. I think he's actually pretty good. I would be interested to see him get more carries. I don't think that's going to happen because, I'm literally making a video about how many halfbacks they have. So kind of a crowded room, but I think that he definitely adds some value there, and it's just kind of fun to watch. They also had a couple of acquisitions. I'll talk about the more interesting one second. So first, I'm going to talk about the one that they brought over from Indianapolis. This is Jonathan Williams. I think that he actually he has some pretty good numbers. He only really got significant playing time in 2 games with the Colts last year, but he ended up overall, last year he had, on 49 attempts, he had 235 yards, which is a 4.8 yards per carry, which is definitely solid. And he also had a couple of, in those 2 games that he got significant playing time, he had over 100 rushing yards in both of those games, which is notable. Although it should be mentioned, part of it was the line, like on this play. That's the blocking concept. It's a run to the right side of the screen. And what you're going to notice is just how well this is blocked. I mean, you're going to just see that there is a huge hole. I mean, let's look at this. Like, my hallway isn't as wide as he can run through. So again, just a great, blocked play by Indianapolis. But I want to give him some credit as well. Towards the end of this play, he does do a pretty good job of, he makes some moves in open space and is able to do a pretty good job there. So will Detroit be able to get him in open space as often as Indianapolis? Obviously not. I mean, I think the Lions' offensive line is solid, but it's obviously just not the Colts' offensive line. They have one of the better ones in the league. So I do think that that's something. But I also think that he's showed some promise, and it's definitely a worthy pickup in my opinion. And of course, if I'm talking about the new guys they brought up, Swift is clearly the number 1 guy on the list. I mean, they spent a second-round pick on him. They're clearly hoping that DeAndre Swift can be a big piece of their offense, I would think. He might even end up with the most carries, which I could definitely see happening. And on top of it, it's nice that they have all these guys, but it is good to have one guy that on a certain play where you need some yards, he can get you those yards. But watch, here's a play from college. Obviously from college, he hasn't played a game in the NFL yet. You have a few blocks at the top of the screen, but you notice that white circle, there is a defensive lineman who's going to be unblocked right here. And the reason for that is they just trust that Swift can outrun him right off the bat, and they won't have to worry about blocking him. And this gamble pays off, as right when you see he's going to be able to run in between them and also another Notre Dame player that got around a block pretty quickly. He was still able to get to his spot so quickly, he got through both of them. Now, there's a couple of other defenders, who can now try to make a block and take on Swift there, but again, Swift is not an easy guy to bring down. And watch how he's going to make a move to the outside where he's able to just get a ton more yards, and he even is able to outrun a defensive back until he finally brings him down. Just a great play from Swift. He's a really good player, and they have a great backfield with a lot of different guys, so they have a ton of depth. So if they have some injuries, which they do have a couple of injury-prone guys on here, it's not the worst thing in the world. So yeah, that's my video about all of the many halfbacks that Detroit has to offer. It should be interesting to see who gets them, how they split the playing time with those guys. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.